Brian Johnston is the executive director of Behind the Badge Foundation. They are based in Washington State, and he is joining us tonight. Sir, I appreciate your time, and as always, we wish it were under different circumstances, but in the work you do, it is important that we hear from you and hear about the support that not only these officers' families will receive, but officers that we need to honor tonight. So I want to begin with your reaction, seeing those powerful images in the streets of New York today, men and women in blue standing shoulder to shoulder, a final salute to Officer Rivera. What was it like for you to see that image of support?
Well, first of all, thank you, Marnie, and my heart goes out to all the men and women of the New York Police Department, as well as those officers who have been attacked over the last several months across our country. I was stunned at the imagery coming out of St. Patrick's Cathedral this morning, and the streets lined, and the amount of love and honor forwarded to Jason Rivera and his family. It is rare to see something like that. It's sad, it's tragic, but it's also beautiful.
Do you feel as though law enforcement receives the same level of support from the public right now when we aren't watching an officer's funeral go by?
I think we hear a lot in the national platforms, a lot of very loud commentary, but when it comes down to our officers and our communities and street to officer and families, I really believe that our communities stand with their officers, especially when they're suffering a tragedy such as this.
You know, you look at 9 officers shot in the line of duty in this last week. 3 lost their lives. 6, thankfully, have survived. You wonder, is the job more dangerous right now? I mean, nine in a week.
Certainly, when you look at the 10-year average trend that is published by National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, it is a steep trend upwards of violence towards law enforcement officers. Last year, 62 violent deaths, 19 of those are ambush, and those are just some of the tip of the iceberg. And until we really go into it, it will be difficult, but certainly anecdotally, it appears that we are in a much more dangerous community.
My heart broke listening to Officer Rivera's widow today speak to the public, speak to other members of law enforcement. On one hand, she is so broken and emotional, and I think anyone in that situation, it's hard to conjure up how to respond. But there's also a level of frustration. You deal with families who have lost members of law enforcement in the line of duty. Is that balance of emotion typical, or is there more frustration now given the environment?
I think that we're going to continue to see more frustration given that environment, but I also believe that there is so much support that we can leverage to our families and to our agencies that we can reach out to them both on the local level and the national level and continue to uplift them and continue to be with them and walk this road with them for years to come.
Your mission at Behind the Badge is honoring members of law enforcement, as I've said, serving the families and those who have survived being injured in the line of duty. What can the public be doing to mirror that same level of commitment that you and your colleagues are giving every day? What can people be doing in their everyday lives?
I believe that there's a substantial amount of organizations across the country, from the local level to the national level, the Concerns of Police Survivors, organizations like ours across the country that every day work towards that end. But again, if we're going to go to the local community, every person in this country has a law enforcement agency in their jurisdiction. And the easiest thing to do, and probably the most heartfelt thing to do, is to go see them and tell our officers and tell our community members how much they do support our law enforcement across the state and across the country.
That makes a pretty big difference, right? To hear that?
I believe so. It is one of those things where you're not expecting it when somebody comes up to you and says something, and it is heartfelt, and it creates another bond with the people that you are actually serving.
I'm curious, Brian, why did you get into law enforcement?
Oh, I think when I was very young and had no idea what the world was like, I really believed and still do believe that my job was to serve. I've always had something in my life where I've been of service to somebody, and it seemed like the proper way to to continue on what I wanted to do. As the years went by, we see a lot of things in our careers, but I've never not wanted to serve the people around me, serve my community, serve my other law enforcement brothers and sisters.
The dangers are inherent, yet men and women sign up to do this job every single day. What is your message to those who are at the start of a career, a dangerous career that involves many risks, but also many rewards?
Yeah, I think the rewards can be many. I think oftentimes where we get lost is because day one, day two, we actually suffer some trauma. Something happens that we see that is primary or secondary or tertiary trauma, and that trauma is accumulative. It accumulates over time, and it becomes harder and harder to deal with. So if I was to talk to my younger self on day one, I would be talking to myself about making sure I'm taking care of myself, my family, those around me, those that I think that are important, and looking at a full life and a full career, and not getting bogged down by the tragedies, or at least seeking out help during those tragic times.
Very good advice for your younger self and for anybody else listening tonight. Brian Johnston, thank you for the work that you're doing and helping us remember that there are many ways we can honor law enforcement today and every day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.